I continually find over and over again that the biggest limiting factor in how fast I can move or how fast I could adopt AI is how much I can believe it could do. You give it a certain level of task, you think, okay, this is working, but you say, what if I just replace myself with it? And you just keep replacing yourself with it over and over again. I don't know where it stops.
Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of Shipping Excellence. I'm Andrew Duncan, and I have today with me a good friend, former coworker, and founder and CEO of SetSale, Asaf Weinberg. Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. Awesome
Yeah,
to be here.
yeah. Today we're going to talk about some of my favorite topics. One, what it takes to build and scale a SaaS product in the age of AI. The cost of SaaS or building software is not zero, and SaaS isn't dead. And then what it takes to build a real company. So Asaf here started SetSale about 2 years ago.
A little more than that, maybe 2.5 years ago.
Yeah,
It's a blur. I
yeah,
can't even remember.
yeah. A founder life, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Let's just start with what it took to build a SaaS platform using AI. Hiring, building out the process, making sure the quality is there, the speed.
Yeah, so to be fair, actually started SetSale before AI tools really changed building to being as fast as it is today.
Yeah,
Some of the AI tools had just started coming out. I mean, the AI APIs were out there. There's a few like autocompletes on your code editor. There's maybe, highlight this command K, like write this function, but it wasn't like, you know, go write me an app like it is today.
yeah, yeah.
So it was very different. So back in the humble days of 2 years ago, those heady times
Hmm.
when you actually had to write code like by hand, I feel like these are stories I want to tell my grandchildren.
Yeah, yeah.
Back when I was 46, I wrote wrote code by hand. So yeah, we did start SetSale, by hand, and over the past couple of years, the way we write software, the speed at which we go, the problems we run into, the things you optimize for, have just changed so drastically. Even the amount of time we've spent just working on this one project.
Yeah, 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 they have. That reminds me of like when I first started coding, jQuery was the new hotness. Back when like before React and Angular and JavaScript, became what it is today. And so it's like sort of that reinvention now of the old way versus now this new, cool, powerful tool that just makes our job a lot easier.
You're giving me goosebumps here. Just the,
You remember jQuerry?
of course,
So
when I
it's
started
painful.
coding, JavaScript hadn't been invented yet.
Yeah,
So
fair. I remember when I had a buddy. He told me I was a .NET developer in the early days, and I had a buddy. He was like, "Yeah, we're using this thing called Node," I was like, "Well, what's that?" And he goes, "Well, it's JavaScript, but on the back end." I was like, "That doesn't make sense. Is there a browser on the back end? Like, how do you do that? You know?"
you know who introduced me to Node? I remember when he told me about it.
Who?
A guy named Aaron Heckman.
Oh, well, all
He's
right.
currently
Well,
my CTO.
fair enough. Yes, yes, yes. Life, small world.
Yeah, he was. I was working at Ally together with him, and he went out. He was had a surgery. He was out for like a month or so, and he started playing around with it and started seeing what it was about. He told me about it. I'm like, that doesn't really make any sense. And then he came back, and after like a month, I'm like, oh, this is pretty cool.
Yeah,
And we actually ended up building our first startup with it, and when we sold it,
nice.
like really really early,
Yeah, yeah,
tiny teeny
yeah.
little
Just
exit.
just enough to get a taste.
Yeah, just we did work on it for like 2 weekends.
Yeah,
So
and then you sold it.
yeah, pretty
This
much.
is pre AI.
This is pre AI. Yeah.
So, all right. So you've been working on SetSale for 2.5 years now. Started building it before all the AI tools came out, or at least were as powerful as they are today. What was that like? Did you write the code to start? Did you have someone else writing the code to start? And then how did that process change when you started using AI?
Yeah, it's really picked up, I think, more recently. So I started SetSale. I knew it was going to be a regular SaaS application. We wanted to start with like a boilerplate. There's no point in reinventing things like
Off.
login,
Yeah.
auth, password reset, teams, team membership, all that. Like every SaaS has that stuff. So there's no point in recreating that from scratch. So I went out and looked for a boilerplate, and we evaluated a few different ones, and we kind of picked one called a Supastarter. And we actually ended up hiring the guy that created Supastarter as our lead engineer.
Yeah. Yeah. That's
Um,
awesome.
but I think it's an interesting story that actually illustrates or mimics how software sharing has evolved over the years. Like when open source became a really big thing, you now copying pieces of code that other people have written and recombining them in your own unique ways. Supastarter as a boilerplate is just like a large version of that, copying other people's code or buying other people's code. Um, Now with AI, instead of having to find something that was pre-created for you by somebody else, you just create your own stuff.
Yeah.
Like anything you need, if there's no library to do it, just make it.
Yeah.
And it completely changes how you go about solving any problem. Like it used to be that you didn't want to write software that wasn't going to be reused or it was going to be difficult to maintain. Like software, you didn't want to waste it.
Right. Right.
It was
It was expensive and it took time.
yeah, like lean startup, lean methodologies came from minimizing waste to Toyota and so on, and
Yep.
source code was seen as like raw material you didn't want to waste. Now you could just come up with the most wasteful solutions that you
Yeah.
want, even if it's a one-time migration
Yep.
or if it's a one-time transformation of some sort. It's just, I mean, heck, I've even written sites that weren't using certain libraries, and I just asked AI to build the entire library instead of
Yeah.
integrating it.
Oh, which makes it. I've had the npm wars where the library versions conflicted, and it was just like, all right, we'll just now you can just like we'll write it from scratch to function like that in my code base, and now I have that library.
Yep.
That's interesting. What you touched on is that the cost of creating software now is significantly less, to the point where you can build a thing that is throwaway, and it basically is negligible consequence, right? Like you're not paying someone 3-6 months to do it. It's a day, 30 minutes, an hour, and we've done that for some of our client projects where we needed to do a one-time migration, and so we would just Python notebook generated by AI, do the migration. Took an afternoon, right? Well, so I've been seeing these posts around like LinkedIn, Instagram, where a lot of people are talking about how the cost of software is zero and software is not a moat. And I tend to disagree with that to some degree. And I want to know what's your opinion on that as you've built SetSale?
So if you look at the SetSale story, it took me more than a year to get the MVP out to market. So even if you can write software really, really quickly, sure, like the coding part of things has changed. Like has gotten really easy, really cheap. Like going from requirements to code is much, much cheaper than and much faster than it ever has been. But going requirements to code was never really the challenge.
Agreed.
Like
Agreed.
as a developer and as a product manager, like I mean, I've spent my entire career with one foot in product, one foot in development, and knowing that people thought that writing code was what kept them from deploying software. That writing code was what kept them from launching successful products. Like how many people would show up and say, "Hey," it's like business people say, "I've got this great product idea. I just need a developer to build it."
Yep. And $1 million.
Yeah, exactly. All the developers out there every Tuesday and Thursday, right?
Yeah.
Like, some business person has an idea and just needs a developer to build it, right? Because they think that the challenge is writing the code, and they had the luxury of having that illusion because that stopped them from moving forward. So they just say, "Oh, there's nothing I could do about it."
Yeah, they hid behind
I
it. It was a crutch. It was a crutch to actually avoid the real problem.
the real problem is understanding what to build.
Yep.
Right. Like software is not a product.
Right.
Like software is not a business.
Yep.
A business makes money. A product has customers.
Yep. The business solves a problem for a customer.
Right. And that's still the hard part.
Yep.
That's the hardest part for everybody.
Yep.
Now, and you're seeing this left and right. Like my developers, every one of them is an entrepreneur.
Yes.
Everyone,
Same.
every one of them came from the indie hacker community where they're building their own products and taking them to market. Well, you see software developers building more and more software, but they're not creating successful companies or successful products because it takes a lot more than writing code to
Yeah.
create a company.
Agreed. Most of my engineers are the same. Like they're just entrepreneurially spirited, right? And some have tried to create companies, and they don't enjoy the building of the business because it's hard work, right? And it
Yeah.
takes like this continuous, dedicated effort of continuing to find the problem, solve the problem over and over again.
Yeah, when I built SetSale, the reason why it took a year plus to bring it to market is not because, well, yes, because I was coding it myself full time, and with Jonathan maybe helping me 10
Yeah.
hours a week or so. So that was a little bit slow going, but it wasn't really just the code. It was I don't have a background in HVAC.
Right.
I had to learn the entire domain. I had to learn the industry. Who are our customers? What tools do they use? What are their processes? What are their pain points? How do they buy? Like that business stuff all has to bake itself into the software.
Yep.
Like software is nothing more than codified business process.
Yep.
It's just a communications tool. and what are you communicating, who are you communicating with, matters more than the ifs and the thens.
Yeah, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
100%, 100. So, interesting question then for you. I was talking of Jarvis is my VP of engineering delivery, and we were just talking about this. We were considering buying this tool to help with our delivery process, and we ultimately decided not to because everything that we're doing right now is at the edge. We are figuring out what an AI native delivery engine looks like, right? And we've gotten pretty far along, but we both agreed that the idea of using a tool that had a UI that was limiting because
absolutely,
UI is not dynamic, and really what I need is data with AI on top of it.
that's right.
Yeah. So tell me what's your opinion uh on the idea of that UI is dying?
UI, user interface.
Yes.
It's it's an interface.
Yep.
It's an interface to something. That something is what really has the value.
Yep.
Um, like any software company, any information company is just a data transformation engine.
Yep.
All right. It
I love
takes
I love this opinion of yours. I've heard this.
yeah, right. It takes input data, it applies the company's proprietary knowledge, the company's proprietary data, and their execution capacity to transform that data into something more valuable.
Yep.
At the end of the day, if your input is data and your output is data, that's all you are.
Yep.
Google is a data transformation engine.
Yep.
Um, and with AI, now we have the ability to off the cloud for fractions of a penny buy the execution capacity to do anything we want. Like just at orders of magnitude more efficiency than we've ever been able to do that before. That capacity, that capability is commoditized.
Yep.
It's literally a commodity. Anybody could buy it. Anybody with a penny
Yep.
can buy that, right? If something's commoditized, it cannot by definition be a differentiator for a company. You can't build value, you can't build profit margin on a commodity,
Right. Well,
right?
unless you want to race to the bottom and then you have all of the commodity.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that's available to everybody.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
why would somebody buy it from you?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
maybe through distribution hacks. The salespeople out there probably,
Yeah. Or brand, maybe it's,
rolling their eyes at me.
shoes are a commodity and people buy for brand, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it's very
but still.
difficult to create like a defensible profit margin off of something commoditized. So anyway, so what's left? Well, if you're an information company, then you have your proprietary processes and you have your proprietary data.
Mhm.
Like you have to look at the entire company as how can I gather data sets and knowledge that nobody else has? And how can I gather that, harness that, organize that? That is your company.
Mhm.
That is the company. Like interfaces, whether it's a UI or a chatbot or some background AI agentic process that does a bunch of stuff with it, doesn't work and can only work if you have unique data.
Yeah. And processes.
Yeah. If,
Yeah.
if you have unique knowledge, if you have
Yeah.
unique insights um, into an industry, or if you have unique ways of doing things, you take those, you apply them to the data, and then the doing is free.
Yeah. All right. So you I agree with this 100%. So how does that affected? You have a UI in SetSale, right? Fairly robust. I've seen it. Robust, and you solve a very specific problem in the space, which is really interesting because uh I guess it was fairly difficult to solve prior to AI, but the opportunity is now there. How do you think about UI as it applies to SetSale for the people that you're helping?
Yeah. So UI is just one mode of interface to a system. I think about the system itself and then who needs to interface that system and in what forms, in what ways can they interface that system. Like the UI is really easy to build.
Yep,
It's you could build and rebuild in 1,000 different ways, UI
in an hour.
in an hour, right?
Yeah.
Anybody could do that.
Yep.
If any software company that provides a UI where the users of that system input their data into a database, and then the users of that system get their data back out of that database through a UI.
Yeah. Those are going away.
Yeah, there's no value to that.
Yeah.
Like if I can create that UI in that database to be whatever I want.
Yep.
If I have the data, I could just build interfaces to it.
Yep. So that brings up one of the other things that I've been seeing around the internet, which I also disagree with, and that is SaaS is dead. And I disagree. Like we do work with fairly large SaaS companies uh, who have market share and position, and they have proprietary data and proprietary processes, and they provide a valuable service to their customers. So what's your take on the idea that you're building a SaaS?
Yeah.
So obviously you don't think that it's dead, but what's your take? How do you build a successful SaaS? And what is it if it's not UI?
Yeah. So, like I was saying before, SaaS isn't dead, but you have to change how you perceive value. Like, what is valuable? Um, as you build a company, you have to think about what proprietary data sets am I tapped into that I'm bringing together that aren't together in other systems.
Hmm.
What proprietary data am I generating that other companies don't have? And you have to build your entire company around that data and the uniqueness of that data set. Once you have that data set, you can produce a lot of different products on that data.
Yep.
Once you have that data set, you could produce a lot of different interfaces to that data for a lot of different audiences.
Yep.
It's just you could still do SaaS, but you have to focus on that as the value add
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
than fancy UI, which now everybody gets out of the box
Yep.
because just remember design systems.
Yep.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yep. Cloud Code Generate. We were delivering on this client project in Cloud. I was like, hey, I need a UI that like lets a user see this stuff. And it was like, one prompt UI done. Gave it to the team, implemented.
yeah.
Also, a second prompt implemented. So yeah, UI is easy, right?
Yeah,
Like,
and so I guess there's two things that you have proprietary data, and the other one is really like go to market.
yeah,
It's distribution.
100%. I talked to a lot of people, right? And I often turn people away because they are of the mindset that building software is easy, and they have a company because they have software, and we're not really interested in that work.
So are these software companies that you're talking to, or are these like non-software companies that are looking to kind of vibe code their own software?
They're both, right? Like, so we talked to a lot of like first time founders who started vibe coding, and they're like, okay, now we want to build a real product, and they come to us, and it's like, well, I asked them like, do you have a go to market strategy? How are you, what's your ICP? How are you gonna get distribution? What's your pricing strategy? How are you gonna support this when you have your first 10 and your first 1,000 customers, right? A lot of people haven't thought that through because like that's what it takes to build a real company, right? And so, or at least pieces of it, right? And so we don't work with those people because they don't know. But then there are software companies who do come to us and they have like a real business and they're generating millions of revenue. And as you know, in a company that provides a valuable service to the market, they also have a ton of back office processes that are driven by people. And because software, in the past grew slowly, right? Because it was complicated. What problem do you solve? The business can grow faster than they could deliver. And so we work with those companies to one, enhance and improve their software. We embed AI into it so that they can scale without having to hire, double their hiring, right? Because now AI lets us do that. And then we can do that so much faster because we use AI to do that, right?
Yeah, so I guess how you use AI and what you find valuable. We talked about data being the thing you should focus on. I think that applies both externally as a product and internally as how you run your company.
Agreed.
So one of the, I just had a big stump speech yesterday with my whole team
Yeah.
about Granola, the AI
Yeah.
notetaker.
Yep.
Like I want to go all in on that. I want all of our meetings, customer meetings, prospect meetings, internal meetings, all of them recorded on Granola.
Yep.
I also opted into their enterprise plan, which actually gives you API access
Yes.
to all that data,
Yep.
which is ridiculously powerful.
Yes, I do know.
Like if you can focus on capturing all the data at its source, capture the activities that are happening. So, we have, how do you know what's happening in the company? Well, there's Slack, that's where we're talking all the time.
Yep.
And there's meetings that are being recorded and transcribed and analyzed by Granola. That's all the activity that's happening in the company. Connect that with QuickBooks. Connect that with Mercury or bank.
Yeah.
Connect that with Stripe for payments. Like it's all about knowing where those data sources are and then bringing them together.
Yep.
Once you bring them together, so this is something of a question I'm struggling with today. Maybe struggling with is a bit of a too strong a term, but it's a question I'm pondering today. Um, we have all these things recorded, and I could create an agent that reads all these meetings and populates a CRM with
Yep.
all that information. The thing I'm working through figuring out is that even useful?
That's a good question.
If I have a bot that is able to completely manage and own and maintain the entire CRM, why do I need the CRM? Why don't I just ask the bot?
So I'm glad you said that because it kind of goes back to like, is UI useful? I put my data in so I can get my data out.
Right.
That's what a CRM is,
Right.
right? I don't need that anymore. I have a CRM because I bought one because that's what you used to do, right? And I don't use it anymore. Um, what we have built is what you just described. We have our note taker, we have API access, we have a Claude code repo that has skills,
Yeah.
and it just goes and downloads transcripts as we need it. It enriches it and goes across the internet and find information. Um, and I just talk to it whenever I need to know some information or I need it to do a thing. I talk to it and I have all these skills that it can go execute on. And it turns out I don't actually need the CRM
Yeah. I
anymore.
don't need a dashboard with reports on it when I could just have that dashboard with reports on it created on the fly whenever I want, and I could change the colors to be pink and purple,
Yeah.
and I could and I could have it like create a diss track about it.
Yeah. Exactly, right? Like, and so this was exactly the reason that we did not buy that tool that I was talking about. Is like it has all this UI and like that's limiting and like really I just need to get my data and give it access to AI to it and
The
then
most
talk to
important
it.
part of that is you need to capture your data.
Yes, yes,
So that's
yes,
you can't do anything. AI can't help you unless you capture the data first.
yes,
So you want to know what you should focus on as a business, internally and externally, capturing the data.
yes, yes. And the easiest way right now is note takers, like all your meetings, right? Especially your internal meetings. Just because, like for example, some of the work that we're doing, there's all of these internal business processes that are tribal knowledge. They're just in people's heads, right? And so, people meet, they talk, they discuss things, and decisions are made, and then it just appears into the ether or in someone's head. And so, you capture that information. It's gold. We ran I don't know something like a million records uh through an AI engine to
Hmm.
figure out the patterns. And this was after we had a bunch of conversations with internal people at the company. We took those conversations and married it with the patterns in the data. We were able to reverse engineer the process. And now we know, like, we have a starting point for
Yeah.
what to
So
build.
great example, AI building. So um, we sold a distributor a few months back, and one of the things I told them that I would do if they signed was that I would go to fly to their office and I would spend like days with them, understanding some of their specific business processes, and I would build them some sort of dashboard or a tool that would help them execute those things, and I would do that for free on top of what we already shipped to them. So they signed. I flew out to Austin, and I took my granola note taker on my phone. I sat it down on the desk, and for like a day and a half, I talked to the head of sales at this distributor. I talked to some of their territory managers, just about everything and anything that's interesting to them, anything that's difficult for them, pain points that they have, things related to pricing, managing the sales process, customer relationship management, all kinds of stuff. And yeah, it was 8 hours at least worth of recordings,
Yep.
right? I got home. I took those transcripts. I just gave it to my AI product manager, and I
Yep.
said, create a product brief that creates a roadmap for solving this distributor's problems. Great. Went ahead and wrote that. And then I took the first item from the top of that list and I took it to the AI PM,
Yep.
and I told it, go ahead and create a backlog of stories of requirements for this particular feature.
Yep.
Then I gave it to my AI, gave it to Cursor and said, go ahead and build this.
Yep.
And then I turned around and shipped it to the customers, to
How
the
long?
distributors.
How long did it
End to end, maybe 4 days.
take? Yeah.
And they got their hands on it. And like, I should read you the responses. They were all capital letters. So it was like 3 distributors I sent this to. Every one of them said, wow, or holy crap, this is amazing! Exclamation marks,
Yeah.
all caps,
Yeah.
like the craziest they've ever seen. And this literally was just one person, like 3 or 4 days,
Having a conversation.
having a conversation.
Yeah. Yeah.
Back to our point earlier, the work is about understanding the business and understanding the problem and figuring out what a solution should be. The coding of it, that's not the issue. It never has been the
Never
issue.
really has been. Right.
Right.
Granted, was difficult, but
But-
it was never the real problem.
But I don't mean this doesn't discount what developers do.
Sure.
Not one bit, because developers always have this hidden talent that no one ever gave them credit for, and that is being able to stamp out ambiguity.
Yes. It's necessary.
Yeah, because the developer's job is to take something ambiguous and make it absolute, so non-ambiguous that a computer could run it.
Exactly.
Get all the ambiguity out of it.
Yes.
So they have to ask all the questions.
Yes.
They have to really get down to the fine details. That skill set could serve developers really, really well in a world where they don't have to code.
I just had this conversation with Jarvis, and we were talking about the evolution of developer. We've been wrestling with this idea of, all right, this collapsing of roles in companies,
Absolutely.
right. So like, there's like, you don't need product managers necessarily anymore. Like a separate role from a product manager, from a designer, product strategist. Like, you need someone who either knows the problem in domain space, or who can go ask the questions to figure those out, right? That's all kind of collapsing down into, if you think about like a delivery, like a delivery team, it's all collapsing down into like two, maybe three people, because one person can go do experience design and ask all the questions about what this solution needs to be. One person can go focus on building it. Sometimes when they're the same person, you only need one person to deliver, right?
Yeah,
Which is what you did.
what I love about this collapsing is this is like, people that have known me for a long time know that this is something I've been harping on for literally decades. I
Yeah.
mean, this is decades of me
Yes.
saying the same thing over and over again. Like, real problems cross disciplines.
Yes,
This is
exactly.
like, you have to solve for feasibility, you have to solve for value, and you have to solve for usability all at the same time. If you have 2 out of 3 of those things, you have nothing. You
Yeah.
have to solve for all 3, and each one of those things pulls on the other. Like, so what we did in the days of yore, the agile days,
Yeah.
back when we did Scrum and
Yes,
and had
I ran
product
many Scrum
owners
teams.
and all that wonderful stuff. We solved one problem at a time.
Yeah.
We thought we were being agile,
Yeah.
but we're solving for value, and then we're solving for usability, and then we're solving for feasibility, one after the other. And like, by the time a developer got their hands on something and says, "Hey, this isn't feasible," like, all the other solutions have already been, all the other specifications about what's valuable and what's usable have already been answered.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they just have to hack something together, and it's just like really inefficient.
Yep.
Now, like you said, everything's collapsed into one, which is the way I've always felt about it to
Same.
begin with.
Right. Like, I've always thought it was like, really, it's like, what is the problem? And then what is the best solution to that problem? That's
Yeah.
it. It's no more complicated than that.
So the metaphor of long used for coding that is now changing is that I will say coding is about specification, or application development is about specification. You have the only difference between an idea you have in your head and the actual production code is just the level of detail in which you've specified it.
Yep.
This is really highly ambiguous. This is not ambiguous at all. Therefore, a computer could run it.
Yep.
Right. If this were not ambiguous, a computer would be able to run it.
Yep.
Right. So you used to have to use different mediums to narrow down the problem domain. You have something really ambiguous in your heads. The solution could be somewhere in this giant space. So you have to search that space and get an idea of, start narrowing it down.
Yep.
So you start doing some wireframes, you start doing some like napkin sketches or
Yep.
something like that, and you narrow it down to, maybe I think the solution's somewhere in here, and then maybe you go to like you go to mock-ups and
Yep.
and prototypes, and you narrow. At each step, you're using a medium that's more expensive,
Yep.
that's more specific, that's slower. So that's why you use the high level stuff.
Yep.
It's the phrase I always use is artists don't sketch in marble.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
You can't start with marble. You can't. Marble code is the most expensive medium there is.
Yep.
You can't start with code and sketch and figure out what the way you want to go, because that creates waste.
Yep.
But now
Marble
code
is free.
is practically free.
Yeah.
So waste is not a big deal anymore. So now you can sketch in marble,
Yes.
which completely
Yeah.
changes the game of what's possible.
Yeah. It's the process is inverted, right? It's like, I like to talk about this in terms.
It's not inverted. It's collapsed into one.
Yeah.
Like,
right.
you can now at the same time solve valuable, usable, and feasible at the same time.
I like to use the term bets, and so it like it's collapsed in one, and so like what we do and what I believe the whole industry is moving towards is the person who's sketching a marble is talking to the person who's going to use the marble, right?
Mhm.
Like, and because it's inexpensive now to sketch in the marble. Those two people talking, this is what Agile always attempted to be. It was like facilitate high value conversations to solve the right problem, And so you can place your bets. I like to think of these as like 6-week windows of like, we're going to place a bet. We're going to talk about a bunch of stuff that needs to be solved. We're going to build it and we're going to launch it within 6 weeks. And you can shift an entire organization in 6-week increments across a 6 or 12 month
Yeah.
roadmap. The biggest problem that we see now is that and the whole industry, I think, too, which is experiencing, is that people can't change as fast as we can build solutions now. And so I think what we'll see crop up is this whole, like, I guess, focus or career focus on like how do you shift an organization to execute now at the speed of light.
Yeah,
Anyways,
there's a great book. I always butcher his last name. Jeff Gothelf,
I don't know his name.
Gothelf. Um, anyway, it's called. He's a design thinking guy, but
Yeah.
it's called Sense and Respond.
Oh, interesting. I'm gonna read that. I haven't
And
read that.
it basically says that the success of an organization is, I'm paraphrasing here, is sort of determined by how fast it can move end to end
Yes.
from detecting customer need or market need
Margaret Shift. Yep.
to the point where the customer actually is realizing that value
Yes.
end to end.
Yes.
Like the faster you can make that cycle, the more likely you are to succeed.
Yes. Yeah. My bet is that organizations are going to, we see this already now with our customers. They're shifting now that they realize that they can reduce the time it takes on that cycle of like market need to customer realizes the value. They can reduce that time significantly, and they're trying to figure out how to shift their whole organization. And I was just talking to a former coworker of mine about the roles that you need to enable these shifts are different, and like the titles of previous roles of the agile, the waterfall, the rad days, those titles don't apply anymore because the people that you need, I've always thought were like you. It's like you've got a foot in product, you've got a foot in experience design, you've got a foot in engineering. Those are the roles, the people that you need to enable that shift. And you need a lot less of them, and they need to be talking directly to the people who are experiencing the problems, whether that's customers, if you're building a solution for the market, or other internal business processes, the people in those other departments in your organization.
Yeah, I think what's happening, and I'm really happy it's happening,
Yeah.
is that we've defined people for too long by the mediums, by the tools that they used.
Yeah.
Designers don't create mockups.
No, exactly.
Developers don't write code.
Right.
Like
All of them are doing the engineering process of solving
they
problems.
all have specific skill sets where we just keep defining them by their outputs
Yeah.
rather
Yeah.
than defining them by their true value.
Yeah.
Like a good product manager, like their job is to prioritize.
Yep.
Like to answer the question, what's the most important thing we could be doing right now? That's what a product manager should do.
Yep.
Like if a product manager could just do that and spend all the time doing that, you're getting the most value out of that person.
Yep.
A product manager should not spend their time like, writing details, specs and going back and forth with developers to just the developers can figure that stuff out.
Yeah.
It's a developer's job is not to write code. A developer's job is to create specification. Like
And reduce ambiguity.
exactly,
Yeah.
that's what specification is
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
become more specific.
Yep. Yep.
To go from I have a vague idea to creating something concrete and taking it over the finish line. That is their superpower. That's what developers are good at in their soul. That's what they became developers to begin with. Let them do that.
Yeah. Jensen, I love the quote by Jensen Wong because like somebody asked him, is his engineers, are their jobs going to go away? Are they going to be replaced? And he said, absolutely not. He said that the engineer's job isn't to write code, it's to solve problems. It's to be specific, right? And so I agree with that. And I was talking to a buddy of mine today, actually, this morning, in preparation for this conversation. And what we're seeing, what I think the whole industry is seeing, is like for a long time, there's been a lot of developers whose job, because like you said, you didn't want to write all the boilerplate off and emails and all of these things you got to do, right, to build a SaaS.
Mhm.
There's been a lot of jobs or developers who are hired into jobs to do what we call development plumbing.
Like translation.
Y-
They translate from one word to from one language to another language.
like, it's like writing the boilerplate, right? It's the plumbing. It's like connecting the APIs and like building the auth system. And like, you don't need that anymore. You only need I think this is the difference between a developer and an engineer, right? Is you only need the person who increases specificity, who asks the right questions to solve the right problem. And that's engineering. It's like solving the problem with the most efficient, given a finite amount of resources in the most efficient way possible. You need those people, and those people are going to continue to have jobs.
That's right. Good engineers are going to be good at a lot of things.
Ex- Exactly. They're going to be good
Good
because
product managers are going to be good at a lot of things. I
exactly.
think it's all the filler that's going to have a hard time with it.
Exactly, and so we're seeing that in practice, right? Like we are now hiring for this role of uh this it's like the hybrid product manager slash experience designer slash strategist to basically um ask all of the questions that need to be asked. And what we're trying to do now, and this is all experimental, right? Because in this world, we're all trying to figure out what the roles are and the responsibilities are. What that does is let them focus on that level of creative work, and it lets the engineers focus on the creative work in increasing specificity of that output and planning the implementation, right? Because
Yeah.
no one's writing code anymore. We're planning implementations.
Yeah, the product manager, they need to understand the parameters of the problem. They're the ones who are defining the problem to begin
Yes.
with. They're the ones who are identifying what problems are the right ones to solve
Right.
and what the problem is.
What to focus on. Right.
And that's like, I think pre-agile even, the issue is uh, people solving problems without even knowing what the problem was.
Yeah. 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 So that brings up the question of um, what does it take to build a real business in the age of AI?
I think it's a lot of the same things that took to build a real business before the age of AI.
Agreed.
Um,
It hasn't changed.
I think it's really important to understand a specific industry. So I'm really lucky that I paired up with Seth Yor, who has really great insight and experience in the HVAC industry. Like someone like me could not go into that industry without or go create SetSale without someone like that to partner with.
Yeah.
So I think you have to have that deep knowledge of an industry to have to know who the customers are, what the pain points are, what tools they currently use, why those tools suck, and what the solution might be,
Yeah.
what might be better. So that level of insight does not come easily. Even working with Seth, it took me year plus
Yeah.
to even get a grasp of it. Um, and you need to have go to market. You need to know where those people buy, how they buy, on what cadence they buy, how to price. So it really a lot of it is just business
Yeah.
and the software part of it. Whether you're creating software or you're making cups,
Yeah.
it shouldn't matter too much.
Yeah.
You need to create a product that meets the need, but understand what the need is and understanding how to get that product to the market is really what a business hinges on.
And it always has.
Yep.
It always has. I agree. Business hasn't changed. And I think because of that, software SaaS is not dead. The cost of building software is not zero. There's still a ton of complexity and ambiguity to stamp out. There's still a ton of you got to support the solution.
I think there's a huge opportunity for consulting companies like yours,
Agreed. Yeah.
um, because you have software is much cheaper to build now. So all that means is that you're going to have more of it.
Yes.
And there's a lot of companies that are not software companies. And while they might be able to build something small here and there, they're going to want more software.
Yep.
They're not going to want to necessarily own that themselves. So they need to use partners like
Yes.
third parties who are now infinitely more productive than they used to be.
Yes, agreed, 100%. And the benefit, the reason we hire the people that we do, with senior or staff level AI native engineers who are here based in the U.S. Right, like is the work that they actually like doing is the stemming. They want to understand the problem space deeply because they enjoy solving the problem. Right, it's not like pushing keys on the keyboard and writing code that they enjoyed necessarily. It's
Mhm.
solving the problem, understanding and solving the problem, and then seeing that work for people. Right, and so they get to focus on that more now. And I agree. There's a huge opportunity for us. That's why I created this company. Because I always say this: companies hire consulting companies for two or three reasons. One is they need to go faster, right? They have capacity, so internally they need the expertise, the expertise in the technology, or they need an external voice of reason to come in and help align teams internally, right? Either those are like the three major reasons, and then they want you to go away. In
Well, I mean, once you write some software, it's you're there to write more for them. I think.
yeah, if they need it, for sure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
A lot of what we do though is because again, I see these organizations shifting. They're trying to figure out how to shift into an AI way of native of delivery, or operating. Right. A lot of what we do too is we help them transition. Right. So we'll teach them how we execute on the technical side. That's everything from like the collapsing of roles and having the right conversations and placing the right bets on the 6-week cycle to here's also how you actually execute, deliver tests, and launch your software. And so we help them with that too, because these companies, especially like large SaaS, they have technical teams and they just are trying to adopt this faster.
Yeah. I, I continually find over and over again that the biggest limiting factor in how fast I can move or how fast I could adopt AI is how much I can believe it could do.
Oh yeah.
You know, like you give it a certain level of task, you think, okay, this is working, but you say, what if I just replace myself with it? And you just keep replacing yourself with it over and over again. I don't know where it stops.
So I just saw this. I just saw this today on LinkedIn. It was this post about the levels of AI native, right? And so the first one was like, you're not
That
using
sounds
AI.
like a very LinkedIn post, yeah.
You saw it?
No, it just sounds like a very
It is.
LinkedIn
It's a
post.
really good post. It's a graphic. It's pretty to look at. I'll put it in the link in the comments. But
Judge me.
but like level 1 is no AI. Level 2 is like you're prompting GPT. Level 3 is like all right, maybe you're using Cursor a little bit. Level 4 is like, and it goes all the way up to level 8. I think is that there's a level 9 that it doesn't cover, which I'm gonna write a post about here soon. But agreed, it's like it actually can do quite a bit now. The benefit of humans is like you know AI doesn't own outcomes, so that you still need a person and somewhat in charge directionally, right? But you can give it pretty large. This is how we execute. You can give it pretty large tasks after going and spending a day of having a conversation or 6 weeks or depending on how much you want to do, and it can handle a lot of it autonomously.
Yeah, I think you're going to see more and more being done autonomously. We we have an internal customer success system
Yep.
um, that it taps into. Here are all our customers. Here's all the activities that those customers have in our database. Here's all the meetings that we've had with those customers. All the transcripts and so on. It's all together. Well, I could have the AI agent go maintain the CRM, or I could have the AI agent, provide insights or send Slack notifications to the actual customer success managers. Sure, but also, what stops the AI from sending an email to the customer?
Yeah.
What stops the AI from scheduling a call with the
Yeah.
customer whenever they're ready? What stops the AI from having that call with the
Yeah.
customer?
Yeah. Which they can do now.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And the AI knows the software really, really well,
Yeah.
and it's the space that I'm in is a little bit difficult to do that. It's a the trades are a very relationship heavy
Yes.
space. They don't take to like automation as easily as some other spaces do. So you still have to have a human in the loop there somewhere. But in other spaces, in B2C spaces, like what stops your AI from just looking at your data, finding insights to which customers you should be talking to, what you should be saying to them, and dynamically having those conversations?
We do that now.
Yeah.
We at Rarities Labs, we not at our customers, but we use AI on our customers' data sets to figure out which it helps the product managers. What should we do next, right? Like, what direction should we go? What should we build? You just closed a round,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
And you've got revenue, you're profitable, and you're scaling. So what's next for SetSale?
Too soon. Too soon. There's a lot. So I think initially we're we're getting a lot of traction.
Yeah.
We're rolling out to a lot of contractors right now. We have distributor deals. I think we're up to 7 distributors at this
Nice.
point. Lenders, warranty providers, like the whole ecosystem. What's really inspiring is to see how the entire industry has responded to SetSale.
Yeah.
Like
Quickly too.
quickly. Like they all. I mean, the number of demos I've been on with these industry people and as well as contractors that have gone so well. It's like, oh my god, yes, we need that. That's what we want. And to see them put the money where the mouth is, like
Yeah.
to buy in big ways, to line up to partner, like that's been super exciting. The hard part is, we just got this funding, we haven't touched a penny of it yet.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, and
Well, when you're cash flow positive, kind of don't need to touch it.
right. We need to scale up customer success. We need to scale up sales. It's funny, like a lot of companies, a lot of SaaS companies at this stage use this money to go hire more engineers.
Yeah. Don't you have a product? Like, go sell it.
Yeah, I'm not hiring more engineers. I have a hard time keeping up with my own engineers.
Yeah.
Like these guys are delivering at such a pace. The the bottleneck is no longer the code.
Right.
The bottleneck is no longer how fast we can introduce new features. The bottleneck is how fast can we get our customers to adopt and understand the new features.
My last episode is titled uh software is no longer the bottleneck, or speed is no longer the bottleneck. It's judgment. It's because like it's like the prioritization. What do you do? What do you spend your time? What do you spend your money? In your case, it's like, how do you ramp people up?
Yeah, like the when you have 10, 15, 20 contractors signing up every week, that's 20 onboardings you need to do, let alone like reaching back out to them to make sure they succeed. You need customer success systems that scale.
Yep.
Like, so to us, the customer relationships are and the product management and the partner relationships. That's where we need to scale.
Yeah.
The developers, they're flying.
Yeah. Yeah. They don't, like, again, record some conversations and give it to them.
Yeah, it's not always that easy, but I mean, like the development is not the bottleneck,
No.
and
No.
which is traditionally has been at this stage.
Yeah, it has. But kind of to your earlier point, mainly because it's like they're stamping out ambiguity.
Yeah.
Right.
Our development process is so different than
Yes.
what we've ever done before. Like, I keep a roadmap that's just at the project level, at a really high level. It's almost like, think of a really high level Trello board.
Yep.
And then a developer picks up a project. We're not talking about a story.
No.
We're not talking about
Or
an
feature.
epic or
Yeah.
like, we're talking about like
Like
a full feature, a full capability of the system
Yeah.
with no requirements.
Yeah.
All they have is the product definition.
Yeah.
Not the product, they have the problem definition.
Yeah.
Right. They pick it up. They start working on it. They maybe spend a week, creating solutions, trying this, trying that. Well, and it's okay if they don't ship any of that stuff, because now they have a full understanding of the feasibility and the different directions you could go with this product. Now we are on the same page. Now we're talking about real things and with real, we have perspective on the problem now.
Yeah.
And now
a shared mutual perspective.
a shared mutual perspective that includes valuable, usable, and feasible. And then we use that shared perspective to then define the solution together.
Yeah.
Rather than doing it up front and giving it to the developer.
Yeah.
And they love it. The developers would much rather work that way than have all the fun sucked out of a project.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Like because the creative process for them is like understanding the problem and then coming up, especially collaboratively. That's really fun, right? Like, some of my funnest times engineering was like working with someone, like, and just like iterating and talking about the problem and what possible solutions we could deploy.
Yeah, they tell me, do not write stories.
Yeah, no.
Like, they're like, I'll manage my own backlog, thank you.
Yeah.
It's a project management system for them, not for me.
Yeah. Yes.
It's not a place for me to give them orders. It's a place for me to define problems for them to solve.
Yes. I think that is a fundamental shift of what the world is going to in building software. It's like, before you had to give orders because like you had a bunch of people you had to manage, you had to, you don't need that anymore. You need like really talented, high throughput, high cognitive ability engineers who want to solve problems, and you give them problems.
That's right. You
And
give them problems and let them
solutions and
use the
options.
tools to figure out, to collaborate around what the solution might be.
Yeah.
And it's okay to ship something that's not 100% because you could just ship again.
Because Marble's free.
Exactly. Because Marble's free.
Hey, well, look, I always enjoy the conversation with you because we share a lot of similar thoughts in this space, and so thanks for having the conversation.
Thanks for having me. Always fun.
Yeah, man. Awesome.
All right, thanks.